Well, welcome everyone. Just to give everyone a heads up, this meeting is being recorded, just to let you all know. But my name is Alicia Berry. I am the Associate Director of Admissions here at Proctor Academy and will be hosting this panel for you this evening, albeit really the voice that you're here, or voices plural, that you're here to listen to are for the students. And so I will really mostly be here in a moderator sense this evening, but thank you all so much for coming and joining us. Hopefully many of you were able to join last week for the Proctor 360 panel as well. But as most of you know, this week's focus is going to be revolving around academics and what that looks like here at Proctor. So I have 4 students that will be joining us this evening as we get started. Just to let everyone know, though, ahead of time, as we are fielding questions, we have a handful of pre-submitted questions. But then if you have any questions that you would like to direct at the panel, please send them either to myself or to everyone in the meeting, and I will make sure to moderate them out for our students. And just along the same lines, we just ask that everyone stays muted this evening, just since we have a larger cohort joining us, and that way we're really hearing the student voices. But thank you all again, and I'm going to share my screen and we will get this presentation started for you all. Perfect. And so hopefully everyone can see this PowerPoint. Can I get a thumbs up from my panelists just to make sure that it's there? Amazing. So as I mentioned, this evening is an academic overview. And so really looking at there's so many different directions that you can go here at Proctor Academy as you're navigating academics, which is one piece of the puzzle as you are all going through this search of where you want to go on your next journey in school. And so this evening I am joined, my co-host here, our Dean of Academics, Derek Nasbaum-Wagler, and I'm actually going to let him take it away from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Alicia. So welcome, everybody. My name is Derek Nussbaum-Wagler. I'm the Dean of Academics. I'm in this role my 6th year this year. I'm also a parent of a current sophomore. I'm advisor. I coach cycling in the spring. And I am really, really happy to be here and really enjoy what we do here as a school. Tonight, as Alicia said, we really are focusing on academics, and the slide in front of you sort of is a more general slide about like what is it that makes Proctor unique, and people, place, program are what we think makes us unique. Tonight we're focusing mostly on program, but you'll hear. I'm anticipating anyway that you will hear as our panelists talk about our program, they will also talk about the people, the faculty that make the program what it is. At least you can go to the next slide. That'd be great. So academics in general at Proctor, there are parts of our academic program that will feel really familiar. They're pretty straightforward in terms of some of the disciplines that we have, the general requirements we have, and then you will begin to see as you start digging a little bit deeper, there are some things that are different about what we do or what we offer. At least you can go to the next slide here. So a little bit of numbers. In general, each school year is broken into 3 terms, a fall, winter, and spring term. Each term there are 7 blocks. So students typically take 5 sort of major courses. So your major sort of core courses, 1 or 2 art classes, and you can see there that we offer each term roughly 130 courses. That is a huge number for a school of our size. I'm really proud of that number, but it's also what makes my job pretty hard, to be honest, because trying to make everybody's schedule work can sometimes be tough. You can see that in our electives world, we have a lot of electives in the art, technology, a lot of club options, and then the experiential side, which I know there's a separate panel that will talk about our off-campus programs, but even within what we do on campus. We have a project period that happens every spring. We have an academic concentrations program that we'll talk a little bit about. And then seniors have a senior project that they typically do in the last 2 to 3 weeks of their senior year. Next slide, Alicia. Thank you. This is an example slide. I am definitely not going to read all of this. This is all information that is also available online, but it sort of points to how our program expands as you move through from the 9th, 10th, and then to the 11th and 12th grade year. And that list of electives that you see on the right, what you can't see is there are also some AP examples there down below. That list of electives rotates. So we really do try to offer a wide range of options. And this is sort of reflective of sort of a typical department. So you'll see a similar thing in science. You'll see a similar thing in English and in math as examples. Next slide, please, Alicia. I mentioned the academic concentrations program. So this is something that has grown over the last few years, and I'm really, really excited about this opportunity. It is a 100% opt-in program that students can choose to be a part of. Typically, they will, in their junior year, start to really formulate, like, I kind of want to go deeper into one of these areas. We talk about our students being really well-rounded, but also having spikes. So like you're a well-rounded person with like these protrusions that go into these different things that you really love. So we have students that have these real passions, and sometimes they're passions that actually mix things like art and social justice, or art and environmental studies. So they will meet with our coordinators of this program and pick a project and pick an area that they really want to dive deeper into. And it involves their academics, it involves off-campus opportunities, it involves maybe summer work, but it's sort of this all-encompassing program that allows a student to sort of put together a package of like, this is something I really want to do for myself. I want to build out this project. Sometimes it's a physical thing they make. We've had students make drones. We've had students make little robots. Sometimes it's research. Sometimes it's creating and writing poetry or a film or a song. So it's a wide range of opportunities, and it's a really, really unique option for students. Next slide, Alicia. And then, of course, we have a hallmark of our program academically is the individualized approach. So with our learning skills program, which again, we have a separate panel that will talk about that, but it'd be remiss if we didn't mention here that our faculty are trained up on the fact that different students learn differently. We've been talking a lot this year about neurodiversity and what that means, and how different all of us are, and how amazing it is, and how cool it is that we're all different, and what that means as a teacher when I have 12 students in my class who all learn a little bit differently. How do I build out a class that is accessible, that is interesting, and it allows students to access the material and to learn at their highest potential? Next slide, please, Alicia. And then, of course, I mentioned it before, this is sort of our trademark BOG slide. I think every year we try to get a good slide of the ninth graders. I think every person on our panel, if they were here as a ninth grader, went on this field trip to the BOG. It's not too far from here. Alicia, if you were here as a ninth grader, you would have gone on this BOG field trip as well. And it's just a really cool sort of way to wrap up the first unit of our ninth grade biology experience. And this is just an example of some of the things we do, trying to get outside really and take in our natural world, our amazing surroundings. Next slide. And then lastly, in sort of some of our cultural pieces around our academics, is this idea of expanding identity. this is a slide of an advisee of mine from a few years ago, who really was his main focus at the time was I'm a football player, and here he is putting the finishing touches on the paddles for a canoe that he built the paddles himself in class, and he continues to be someone who works at a camp and does a lot of canoeing, and so his identity sort of expanded from I'm a football player into I'm an athlete and someone who loves the environment. I'm an athlete and someone who really likes to work with wood and work with my hands. Next slide. So now you get to meet the stars of the show, which are our panelists. So I'm going to stop talking and let Juju take over.
Okay, hi, I'm Juliet, and I'm from Stowe, Vermont, and I'm a senior, and this is my 3rd year here. And like what wanted me to come to Proctor was definitely like, well, I'm a skier, and there being a ski area right here definitely encouraged me to want to come here to not have to drive like an hour every day to go like a mountain. And also like how like with learning skills, how they could help me manage being an athlete and with academics is like really nice to have that, so I can like even that out well. And I definitely get like a lot of help with academics and like managing it, and helps me with my academics a lot here, which is nice. Yeah.
Thanks, Juju. Hi, I'm Augie Oberting. I'm from Hanover, New Hampshire. I'm a senior, and I came to Proctor, and I repeated my sophomore year here. What really drew me initially, I was looking to play hockey, and then lacrosse, and then I really loved it here, and I couldn't have been happier that I've ended up at Proctor.
Thank you, Augie. Hi, I'm Ingrid. I'm from Shenzhen, China. I'm a 4-year senior right now at Proctor. I do horseback riding, ski, and tennis here. And what really makes me here, I think it's probably the people. They're so welcoming when I first like came to the campus, and which just pulled me here. Yeah.
Thanks, Ingrid. My name is Noah Gardner. I'm from Northside, New Hampshire. I'm a 2nd-year sophomore. The main thing that drew me to Proctor was the culture and the people, kind of like Ingrid. Just really nice community.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And Derek, actually, I was here. My fun fact for everyone joining us today is I'm a Proctor alum. I graduated in 2015. So I was here my freshman year, and I did go to the bog. And I was one of the kids that got to accidentally step into the bog and smell for the rest of the day. So it was a really great experience for me. Experiential learning at its finest. But as I mentioned for everyone today, I mean, this part of the panel is really where you get to utilize these students as resources, because once again, working in admissions, if you work with myself or really any of our admissions counselors, you're going to hear plenty from us. And so this is a great time to pick apart the brains of some students here. We tried to find varying ages. Unfortunately, our juniors are actually all at a college counseling meeting this evening. And then our freshmen, they just finished their first month of school. So we're giving them a little bit more time underneath them before I throw them on a panel. So we have 3 wonderful seniors here, and then Noah really stepping up as a newer student who just went through this experience last year that you're all wondering about. And so feel free to ask them any questions. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And as I mentioned, we did have a handful of pre-submitted questions. So I will make sure we'll kind of start off there. But once again, as we are speaking, make sure that you feel free to submit any questions. I would also recommend for anyone on this, depending on how you're viewing, at the top corner, I would highly recommend clicking the speaker view. That way you can really see the students as they're speaking on that end, but completely up to you guys and how you'd like to view it on that side. But let me pull up some of these pre-submitted questions so we can get the evening rolling. So let's see here.
And Alicia, while you're doing that, just to clarify, you want people to put their questions in the chat, right, to the whole group?
Yes, please. To the whole group or to myself. Let's try to avoid sending them directly to the panelists, just as they're kind of going off of the things that are on here and won't be checking their messages quite as much. But so there's a couple of pre-submitted questions here that I'd love to start with. The first and foremost one, which I'm sure is what a lot of you guys are wondering about this evening, whether you're looking at transferring in from a previous school or also, well, all coming from a previous school, but whether you're transferring in as an upperclassman or perhaps looking at coming in as a freshman, transitioning from middle school to high school. One of the first and foremost questions I had a few people actually submit was whether or not the academic transition was difficult. And so how you guys felt maybe that it held up, you know, and what those support structures looked like for you guys as you were making that transition. And so if there's anyone that wants to start us off this evening, Noah, maybe I'll put you on the spot as our newest panelist, you know, just last year being a new student in high school, how that was for you.
Sure. I think the biggest thing that really helped the transition was the fact that all the teachers had extra helps after school. So anytime you were feeling like you were needed a little bit extra help, you could go and talk to the teacher. Most of the time it was in a pretty small group, you know, 5 or 6 kids and then the teacher, which really helped. And then on top of that, I did the Learning Lab program, which is sort of a structured study hall kind of a thing with a teacher watching over you and making sure you're on the right track. But that was also really helpful. I think that's it for me. Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Awesome. Thank you, Noah. And then maybe either Juliet or Augie, as soon as that transferred in from a different high school, what that transition might have looked like for you. Augie, you repeated a grade when you came, correct?
Yeah. So I had already done freshman and sophomore year at Hanover. And coming in, it was definitely a little bit intimidating. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I actually started looking in the summer, so everyone here is a kind of a head start on me. But yeah, just kind of the extra help sessions, as Noah previously mentioned, just kind of that informal environment where you could kind of get to know your teachers and what they really expected from you. And then kind of that 7:30 study hall, it seemed kind of early to me, but it really, there's always something you can be doing. And I think the dorm parents, a lot of them are teachers themselves. So they often provide a lot of good strategies if you're in one of their classes too, which was really helpful.
Thanks, Augie. And what he was just alluding to with study hall is we do weeknight study halls for the whole school from 7:30 to 9:30. If you're a day student, you're more than welcome to join us in the library, but then boarders have the option to do that either in their rooms or in the library. So for anyone wondering about that. But yeah, I mean, I think you guys, as you mentioned as well, having the teachers be dorm parents, coaches, your advisors, they're living on campus. It's definitely a different form of access to faculty that for most of us, we're not used to at first and can be really handy. Ingrid, did you have anything you want to add as someone who's been here all 4 years of some of the tips and tricks you've found along the way?
I think that advisor right here really helps a lot. Like they usually regularly check about your academic growth and what some obstacles you met in the way. So like through this regularly check in, I can actually like improve a lot. Like for my freshman year, I can't really blend in and it's kind of a really hard time for me to get transitioned in. But my advisor, my dorm parents, and all the teachers, students around me just support me. And I think just it just like goes really smoothly and I finally get there.
Thanks, Ingrid. And Juliet, maybe how would you say the transition, especially intertwined with skiing, has been for you?
Well, I agree with what everyone else is saying about how like the help and like with study halls and like the extra helps is like there's really help like everywhere, and like you never really feel like if you ever are struggling there's always someone that will be there for you. And like just like having the study hall really helped me, like me being a big procrastinator, like having time to like just really work and like do it then like was really nice, because like all your friends are all trapped in the dorm, so you kind of just have to do all your work then, which was nice. So that was like, that really helps me and I enjoy that part. And like coming here, like having that like really helped me. So then like when I'm at sports and stuff, like that's all I can like focus on. And like I know I have a set time to do my work. So then when I get to my work, it's like don't have to worry about anything else. I can just do my work then.
I love the self-awareness there, calling yourself out for procrastinating. But no, it's definitely true, everything the kids are saying there. On the flip side, as a dorm parent, I see it myself. I did have a question submitted to me that's more in regards to boarding, but I think, keeping it within the lens of academics and how boarding is like. How was that transition for you guys? All of a sudden, you're living with all of your friends. You're not going home to do homework every day. How was that balance of all of a sudden being this social life constantly as well, being at your fingertips? How did you find that when navigating, attending extra helps and study hall and whatnot for each of you? Augie?
Yeah. At first, it's intimidating. Our schedules are pretty busy. But that definitely helps because you're doing so much for so much of the day. We don't really think about some of those things that might make you want to go home. And just like today, there was a JV football team where probably the entire school was there. So just stuff like that really helps. You just kind of like fit in socially and then kind of go from there.
Juju?
I think it's like going into like a dorm is definitely like intimidating. There's a lot of people and you meet them, but it's also like you have friends immediately to go places with, which is definitely nice. And like you don't feel like alone, and like there's always people there to like talk to if you are feeling like homesick or anything. And I don't know, that part was like nice to have, like just have friends immediately to like go places with, which I think is good.
Awesome, thank you. Another question, which I think Augie, you just touched on a little bit, was asking about how you balance everything here when you have academics and the arts and athletics and your social life and extracurriculars. How has that balance been for each of you guys? Maybe Noah, we'll start with you again as somebody fresh to high school, so learning how to balance it all.
Yeah. Again, the whole study hall thing. I'm a day student, so I have to go home, or unless I want to go to the library. So a little different from the boarding students, but I'm still sort of forced into a situation where I'm studying and working on homework and that kind of thing. So it's definitely helpful to have that as a kind of added structure. So that definitely helps to delineate and separate out the playtime and the working time. And there definitely is enough of both to get everything done. So yeah, the study hall helps a lot.
Thanks, Noah. Does anyone else have anything to add about how they've figured out how to find that balance? Again, I know we've kind of touched on that a little bit already. I guess feeding, oh, Ingrid, yes.
Yeah, I just want to add on that, like Proctor cuts off the like Wi-Fi in the midnight, which is actually helpful for, especially for lower classmen, that they make transition from the middle school to high school, which helps them to like really push their efficiencies and like do the homework more effectively when the Wi-Fi hasn't shut down. And I think it's one of the way to balance the workload and personal life too. Yeah.
Thanks, Ingrid. And this next question might be aimed at you a little bit too, as someone who's been here throughout the years. When looking at, study hall, but I think we can also look at it in academics in general, how it differs from freshmen to students, how that structure is. Did you feel like there was more structure kind of your first couple years at Proctor, and then as you got older, a little less structure around study hall and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. Like in my freshman year, I think, because it's all like kind of easy classes, and it's some interesting projects or something. So it's not that stressful. And sometimes I may just like put all my study hall time to do the work. But now like I need to actually plan out what's next, what's how could I just balance the work, how can I just use some, for example, my study block to do some of the future work, so I may not be stressed in some future days because I'm a senior. So maybe I am taking some challenging courses. So if students like me will have like a more workload, that's a better way to like structure.
Thanks, Ingrid. And I think that leads on actually to the next question too, which is always my favorite one when I run the academic panel each year, is how much homework is there? And so as you just mentioned, there's definitely some variation. But what would each of you guys say on average? And does that change every year or even per term for you guys? Augie, I'll start with you and we'll work our way across.
Yeah, so it definitely depends. And we don't have every class every day as well, which kind of helps you balance the load. But there's definitely something you could be doing, whether it's getting ahead or just kind of studying some material during that study hall time. But generally, if I'm being productive, I can easily get my homework done between 7:30 and 10 o'clock at night. But yeah.
Awesome. Does anyone else have anything to add on that, or do you feel like Augie hit the nail on the head for you guys? Awesome. Maybe actually too, I think before we go down too much of a rabbit hole, or not a rabbit hole of questions, but as we've mentioned, and Ingrid brought up too, different classes each year, how much of a load you want to take on. It might be nice if each of you guys share with our guests what classes you're currently enrolled in for this year. And Augie, I'm going to start with you, and then I'll go Juliet, Ingrid, and then Noah. We'll go down the line.
Yeah, so this year I'm taking AP Language, AP Environmental Science, Calculus, Intro to Programming, AP Gov, and Economics. And I have to shout out Culture and Conflict, which I took last year, which definitely has been my favorite class this year. It's kind of like an honors social science and English course. And that's kind of interesting. You have two teachers for one class, and it meets twice the amount of times. And it's really discussion based. I just really enjoyed that. So I would recommend it if you come here to take that class.
Okay, so I'm taking AP Human Geo, AP Environmental Science, Pre-Calc, and Athletes and Literature. I'm gonna forget one. I think that's it, honestly. I'm not sure. I might be forgetting one.
You've been learning skills independent.
Oh
as well?
yeah, I'm in Learning Skills Independent, and I have a free block.
This year I'm taking AP Computer Science, AP English Language, AP Government, AP Stats, College Physics and Calculus, and Organic Chem. I don't have art class this term because firstly, I'm taking Organic Chem, which is like a elective course, which only takes the fall terms, or I think there's another in spring terms. It's kind of a one-term class. It's really interesting. It's kind of paved the path for you to get into the college. But I also want to add that if you're a new student or you're planning ahead to graduate, please take the course for the tech credit as like early as possible. So you don't want to be like me, like I have 6 core classes this term, so I need to like make up the tech credit. Yeah.
Okay, I have to pull up a list here. I am taking chemistry, English 10, French, pre-calculus, study block, US history, and then woodworking skills is my skills class.
Nice. And which one's your favorite one right now, Noah?
Probably chemistry with Ian.
Awesome. So you guys definitely have a variety in your schedule. A lot more APs in the schedule than an average senior, I think, in some ways. I didn't mean to have all of our students that are taking full boats here, but I know you guys can definitely speak to a lot of the other classes that are offered at Proctor, especially in that junior and senior year as well, which is nice. But so moving on from that, but just so everyone in the crowd kind of has a gauge as to what classes you're kind of referring to as we talk about homework load and whatnot. This next question here has to do with advisors. Perhaps you guys could share a little bit about what the advising system is like at Proctor, and how your advisors help you with life and with your academic scheduling. And Noah, since you were the last to speak, you're on the screen for me. So you're starting off this time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, advisors are really cool. My advisor that I had last year actually left, and I still am in touch with him. So basically, everyone gets an advisor, and it's a group of maybe around 8 kids in an advisory, and it's just a chance to catch up with a teacher, have someone who you can talk to, go to, who can, I guess, advise you, talk to you about how classes are going, sort of think ahead. They can send out an email, say, hey, remember to go to this speaker tonight or something like that. Really just to check in and make sure everything's going good.
Awesome. And who's your advisor this year?
Gordon Bassett.
Great one. Nice. Ingrid, Juliet, Augie, anything to add? As people that have stayed probably in the same advisory. Augie, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I think definitely class-wise, they definitely get to know you pretty well throughout your kind of life at Proctor. So they definitely make sure that you're taking challenging enough courses. But with some time, they'll get to know you. So if you need a little extra help, they'll make sure you're not taking anything too difficult as well, which has been super helpful.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. It's got to happen once every Zoom session, right? I'll take one for the team there. Yeah, the advisor system though here at Proctor, just to add in with the students, as an advisor myself, you do see your advisor 4 times a week. 3 times that's at all school assembly. You sit with your advisor and you typically have time to check in with them before or after. And then we have once a week a time slot that's actually dedicated to advisory. And so you meet with your group in a dedicated space that your advisor chooses. And sometimes we have prompted questions that we're going through with their students. Other days we're helping schedule. Sometimes it's just checking in, having snacks. Food is definitely an advisory favorite. My kids really love Dunkin' Donuts, so they get that quite often. But the advisory sizes will range anywhere, typically from 5 to 8 students, mixed ages, often mixed genders. And for most students, they'll stay with that same advisor from whenever they enter Proctor all the way through. So it's also a great mentoring program for students to other students in that space, most certainly. Derek, do you have anything you want to add on that end? I know we've kind of just boxed you out.
No, that's fine. They came to hear the students, but as an advisor, I think for me, it's I really appreciate, since I'm not teaching a full course load in my role, it's a real good touch point for me on like how things are going in the school. I often will sort of use my advisees as test cases of like, what are you hearing about this, or how are you feeling about this? As the person who's kind of given the role of scheduling, I will ask questions about like how the schedule feels. At the beginning of the year, I got a lot of feedback from my advisees about how cramped lunch felt at the beginning of the terms. But I feel like that sort of has settled down. And then like today I spent my advisory with my students. We were going through their 4-year plans again. So a 4-year plan really is what it sounds like. Even though some students come and they only have 3 years here, so then that's a 3-year plan, obviously. But we really talk through, if you're hoping to do an off-campus program, like I really want to go on Ocean Classroom at some point, it's good to have a plan in place so we know how to schedule your academics to make that happen and allow you to also take all the classes you want to take. So that was a good exercise for them to be thinking about. I have a chunk of students who are sophomores, for them to think about the next 2 years and really how they want to map out their trajectory.
Thanks, Derek. And that actually, I'll put you back on the spot in just a moment. I think really led into the next question that I had submitted to myself from someone here in the crowd, asking about how we integrate off-campus programs into on-campus curriculum.
Ah,
So
mhm.
looking at it just from the academic lens, because again, we'll have a panel of students that can talk more about the experiences outside of just integration of academics for those.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about it. So we have one program that is open to sophomores, and that is our Costa Rica program. We have about 5 or 6 students will go in the winter and the spring of their sophomore year. And then really most of the rest of our programs, the Segovia, Spain program, the France program, which is our European art program, Mountain Classroom, and Ocean Classroom, those run off and on. Like Ocean, we run for 2 terms, fall, winter. And then Mountain Classroom is really winter, spring. The way that it's integrated, you know, we try to work ahead. For example, we have 22 students who are currently on the boat for Ocean Classroom. We have about 5 at least of them who are planning to integrate back into AP Calculus when they arrive in the winter. So many of them did a lot of homework over the summer and basically working ahead, spending time with a tutor, so that they had term 1 of AP Calculus kind of under their belt, and they could integrate right in. And that's why we need to sort of work ahead. We also do offer off-sequence courses. For example, I'm going to be teaching an off-sequence physics class starting up in the winter for students coming off of our fall programs who want to take a physics class. And so I'll teach like term 1 of physics in the winter, term 2 of physics in the spring. And then the way that I'm working on designing that course, we will hit all of the core things that they would really need to move forward and go into a college physics class. We may not get to every little thing, but we really do try to design a lot of our programs around this idea that our juniors and seniors, we want them to come and go. We want them to do these experiences. And even many of our AP courses, AP Environmental Science, AP Lang, AP Lit, AP Gov, AP Human Geo, are designed in such a way that students can come and go for a term and still finish those courses. And I'm trying to remember, my memory serves me right. Ingrid, you went off campus, correct? Yes?
Actually, I'm going to.
You're going off campus. Darn it. I was thinking, do we have anybody who went off yet? Or not yet? Usually we have maybe one. So Ingrid, where are you going off campus?
I'm going to Spain.
Okay. All right. I thought that was true. I was thinking that you had already gone though. So anyway, it tends to be when we have students return from an off-campus program, I'm sure all of our panelists can talk about how sometimes that's all they talk about. But it's because it's such an incredible experience for them. It's kind of a going joke that like this one time on Mountain is sort of this ongoing experience, term that you will hear students say, because it's such an incredible experience.
Thanks, Derek. That envelope definitely another question that was also about off-campus programs and what the requirements were. So that worked out really well. The next question that I have, which is nice, Noah, you can speak to kind of underclassmen options, and then the rest of you can definitely speak to the options that juniors and seniors have. Right here is submitted about how much choice do I have? What are the requirements? So looking at your class choices, and as for you 3 seniors, kind of what were the options for you? Did you feel like you had a good bit of choice, both junior and senior year? And then Noah kind of can talk about freshman and sophomore year and what that looks like. Julia, I'm going to put you on the spot first.
Okay. I think you get like you can choose like whatever you want to take for like your history and science classes. There's definitely a lot. Oh my God, wait, now I just remember I'm taking epidemiology too. So I'm taking 2 sciences, and this class is really cool because we're learning about like the epidemics and like studies on like diseases and things, which is like really interesting. And so there's a lot of like classes, like as you get older, you can like pick more about like what you're really interested in. And like there's so many to pick from, which is like overwhelming to choose, but you can really get a lot. And you also, the first like 2 weeks of school, I'm pretty sure it's like if you're not into like a class, you can always like ask and like figure out how to switch and like try out a different class. So like it's not permanent if you don't like, if you're not like enjoying it or you're not feeling like you want to stay in that class, which is nice.
Thanks, Julia. Augie, do you have anything you want to add as somebody that transferred in, and what those courses also look like for you as a repeat?
Yeah, so I came in my sophomore year and repeated. And coming as a repeat, I had a lot more options because I'd taken some of those required courses already. So my sophomore year, I took 2 science classes, and then I took 2 social science classes last year. And just the flexibility of what you can kind of take per term has been super nice. Like I took like an ornithology class one spring, which was super random, but it was with this teacher who I loved, and that's why I took his apes class, because I kind of met him there. And you just kind of find out these courses, whether it's through assembly or through your advisor, which has been super fun to just try new things.
Awesome. And then Noah, I'm going to put you on the spot as our resident underclassman.
Yeah, so as a freshman, definitely there's except for skills classes and arts, there's very limited choice, which I think is good because you get to get introduced without the stress of picking classes and know what classes did I get. So all the freshmen are in the same class and everyone sort of can like work together and work through that. And then sophomore year, it opens up a little bit. I think there are a couple of different honors options and that kind of thing. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward, not as confusing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Noah. And then I had a question here also that is looking at talking about the approach to academics, with Proctor being still a mainstream school, but not necessarily that traditional style of learning, and how you guys feel like the classroom learning maybe differs from where you were before and how that transition was. So, variety of different assessments maybe that you take, and just like how the setup of a classroom is on a daily basis for something like an English class or a science class, what that looks like. Augie?
Yeah, so I definitely think it encourages collaboration and pretty good discussions within your class. And I think some of the teachers at Proctor are some of the most empathetic I've ever had. Just kind of willing to hear you out. And then just outside of the classroom too, just collaborate. A lot of projects you can collaborate with your classmates on. And just kind of puts a different twist that I had at my public high school.
And Juliet, how was it for you, that transition in?
For me, like coming here was a big change, a lot more different than like my public school, where like everyone, it was like the classes here is way more like everyone's more welcoming and like listening to you, and the teachers, like you can go to their X help so you can connect like better with them because you get to see them more like outside of your class setting, which is so much nicer. So you become more comfortable with them, and like talking in classes is like more comfortable, and like it's a lot like Augie was kind of saying, like everyone like is there and working with each other well, so it's nice.
And Ingrid, how was that for you kind of over the years? And maybe you can also touch on class size a little bit as well. How big some of your classes have been versus others, and versus where you were at school before.
Oh, the class size definitely a really huge change, because in my previous school in China, they usually have like 30 or 40 kids in one class, and which is huge, and like students cannot receive actually like real attention from teachers. But right now, our average class size is about like 15, and some of the classes, for example, college physics that I'm taking has only 6 students right now, which is really good class, and I think one of the big change about the class at Proctor is that it go beyond the classroom and the memorization. Still, like the example of college physics. I have Buzz Morrison as my teacher, who really aims at helping students to derive functions if they want to use it instead of remember all of the functions in their head. So I think, yeah, that's a really helpful step, and it's a really special experience to me.
Thanks, Ingrid. And then Noah, maybe you can talk about too, looking back on your freshman year, what are the kinds of like assignments or assessments that you've had in your courses? Is it all tests and quizzes? What are some of the things you did last year?
Sure. So in the history and English, there were definitely lots of papers, which some of which you could work on in a group and definitely peer edit and that kind of thing, which was cool and helpful. But as far as math and science, math, we're doing a different grading system, which maybe Derek wants to talk about. I'm not really sure how that all works. But the testing was sort of, you couldn't go back. You sort of worked your way forward, and once you knew a concept, that your grade couldn't go down. And so it was helpful that you could focus on the new subject as it came up.
Yeah, Derek, maybe you want to touch a little bit on how our grading for equity process works
Sure.
and allowing students to have those retakes.
Yeah, so one of the things we continue to work on is how do we best assess and give students feedback? How do we ensure that a grade is truly representative of the, what a student has learned and what they can demonstrate? And I feel like, of the 4 schools I've worked at, Proctor already does a really good job of that. But last year we really drilled in a little bit more to think about how we could even do better. The math department, as Noah talked about, has moved in the direction of using competencies as a way to give students, because it works so well with math and how you have specific skills. Students are sort of getting scores on different competencies as they move through it. Their final grade really is a composite of like all of the different skills and how much they've mastered them. So a student's grade sort of moves as they grow their skill set, which is a really valuable thing. It had some growing pains. People who are not familiar with it, it feels scary. It feels weird. It feels hard to understand. Sometimes initially you're like, wait, I'm at like all 1s out of 4. That means I'm getting like a 25%. Like, no, settle down. Like that's not actually what it means. So it's taken some while for students to fully understand it. But as Noah said, what that means is once you've mastered a skill, like you're there and you know right where you are with that skill, and and if you haven't mastered it, you know what you need to work on. So I think it's a really valuable thing. Yeah, I think I've answered that piece of it. I can answer. I did see a question here about the average time in class. Really quickly, this year our classes, fall, winter, and spring, are hour long. So every class is an hour, and without going way deep into the nuances of our block schedule, all classes meet at least 3 times a week. In the fall and in the spring, it's more like 3.5 on average, depending on the week. In the winter, it's more like just 3 times a week. And so that's why we've been talking about the extra helps and things. In order to keep me moving forward, we do ask students to do some work outside of class. We give them time to do it, and then we meet them regularly if they need help on doing that work.
Awesome. Thanks, Derek. And then there's another question here, kind of talking about how Proctor encourages students to take on AP classes. And I thought as an advisor, I might talk a little bit about that. And then students, if you have a different perspective, please feel free to share. But definitely as an advisor, kind of Augie already mentioned it too, is really, I want the kids, because AP classes are going to be primarily for juniors and seniors, to definitely take on challenges and follow their passions. And so sometimes too, though, when you have a student who's trying to sign up for an AP class for every single one of their subjects, as an advisor, every once in a while, it is a little bit of pumping the brakes and, talking about whether or not that is going to be a realistic schedule for them. And it's very personable. Once again, typically you're with that same advisor throughout their years at Proctor. So that's a very close relationship that you can have those real conversations with. And also kind of sometimes it's asking students why they want to take, 5 AP courses. Are those actually classes that they're interested in, or do they just feel the need? Does it just feel like they're checking a box? Because once again, we really want to encourage students to also take classes that they're passionate about. Instead of learning a lot of things of an inch deep, we want them to really go down to that next level in their courses. And so I think students do a pretty good job. If they're really interested in the sciences, maybe they're taking AP biology, but then they're going to take electives like epidemiology and our forest sciences and climate sciences, if they're really loving that space. So the electives are also there to support those passions and take their learning to that next level as well. So hopefully that answers a little bit of that question. We want that balance. If students want to challenge themselves and are interested in a course, we are going to encourage them, but we also want to make sure that they have that support otherwise. Maybe to kind of jumping into this next question real quick. We have one here talking about how students are supported if they're struggling in a specific subject. Maybe one of you guys or a couple of you guys can talk about, I know you mentioned extra helps, but also talk about some of the other support structures like Math First Aid and the Writing Center and what that looks like, and just meeting with teachers in general. Augie?
Yeah, so definitely because we have smaller classes too. Teachers definitely know where you're standing, and even your dorm parents have access to your transcript as well. So if they see you're falling behind, maybe they'll knock on your door and ask how you're doing. But yeah, like Math First Aids, there's always times where it's students helping other students, or tutoring opportunities as well, if you kind of need that extra help. And if you aren't pursuing that yourself, generally you'll be pushed by a faculty member or sometimes even your own peers to kind of attend some of those things as well.
Thanks, Augie. That's definitely helpful. And just adding that in there, every single teacher holds an evening extra help session at least once a week for their classes. Once again, being boarding school, it's great having your faculty members, the majority of them living right here on campus, and offering that for students to attend. I would say that's probably one of the biggest things as a profile of a Proctor graduate, was learning how to use my resources. When I then went to college, it was very normalized for me to go to those teachers' office hours. Derek, did you have something you wanted to add in that space?
Yeah, I just want to mention that we have a communication system called Official Notes. And what that is it's a way that a teacher can write sort of a single note that touches basically all of the humans that are supporting each of our students. So if I have a student in my physics class that I'm worried about where they are, and I send an official note, parents get it, dorm parents get it, coaches get it, advisor gets it, the student gets it. And it's not, it's not always, hopefully we're not waiting until it's like really dire, but it's like, hey, it looked like you're really struggling with this idea, this concept, try to stop into extra help, or let's try to find a time to meet, or things like that. If students really seem to be struggling across the board, we might ask them to try what we call structured study hall in the library, which basically is another layer of structure in that we sometimes students don't find that the dorm is the easiest place for them to focus during study hall. I'll just say, broadly speaking, probably not a surprise that sometimes a bunch of 15-year-olds in a dorm, they sort of can distract each other. So we will say, all right, let's try for a while. You're signed into the library every night for study hall, where there's another, it's more of a little more controlled, supervised space. And that is another sort of layer of support we can bring in. And oftentimes that does help students. I was in the library last night. There were 38 students in there and it was dead quiet. And students were doing a lot of work.
Thanks, Derek. And I think we are getting close to that end of the evening. I know there is a handful of questions, especially around specific scheduling. And I would definitely encourage you all to reach out to your specific admissions counselors, because that's something that we can answer easily enough for you. That doesn't really need the student perspective. So I think the last question of the evening, and this is a fun one, thank you for submitting this to me, was around favorite courses. And I think just a great way to end off, as you know, respecting the time that these students have, as we mentioned, study hall 7:30 to 9:30 in the evening. So we have cut into their study hall. But this question here submitted was, what was your favorite academic course and your favorite art course that you have taken or want to take at Proctor? And so I think we'll go down the line. So Augie, Juliet, Ingrid, and Noah. And maybe if you want to give a shout out then to, you know, one of those core courses that you've liked, and maybe why you liked it so much. And then if you took an art or a tech course that you wanted to give a shout out to as well.
Yeah, so I previously mentioned it, but culture and conflict was a super interesting class to me. A lot of discussions, and one aspect particularly just about you can rewrite pretty much every paper. I think it's a policy. So that really helps, just getting feedback and then kind of putting that into the next papers I would write. And then I took studio art with one of my favorite teachers. Her name is Jill. And I was originally only going to take it for one term, but I ended up taking it for the entire year. And just the environment, a lot of people who are passionate about art. And I think the workspace is really unique, especially for boarding schools as well. So.
I think currently my favorite class, I mentioned it earlier, was chemistry. Ian Hamlin, really a great teacher. It works really well to include help everybody sort of teach to their kids and include everybody in the discussions. And then as far as skills or art classes, metal engineering was really interesting and challenged me a lot. So that was good.
Okay, so for me, I took journalism last year and I took it for 2 terms, and I've never really been the best writer. So this class really pushed me, and it's really fun because you got to pick whatever you wanted to write about. And it was scary a bit because we'd publish it for the whole school to read. So everyone would read these articles that we'd write, and it's exciting because we get to interview people. And so this class was just really fun because we got to just write about what we wanted and have everyone read it. And I liked it so much in the fall that I took it again in the spring. And then I've taken studio art, which I loved with Jill too, because Jill's the best. And I also tried a digital photography class, which was really fun because we just went around campus and took photos and seeing how everyone else would capture campus. And that was a really fun class I took my first year here, which I enjoyed.
My favorite class is definitely college physics and calculus. Even if it's a brain burning class, it's just mesmerizing me. And but then the whole class is just it's kind of a whole unity. I don't know, we solve problems together, and it's hard but fun. My favorite art class is ceramics, definitely, because it's really relaxed, and just the atmosphere there, it's really art vibes. I don't know. Yeah, and that's it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. A huge shout out to these students. Do want to say one quick note I realized I forgot to mention in the beginning is we are all on a first name basis here with our faculty and students. So as the kids are yeah, shout out to Jill. They're not just super casual with a couple teachers. That's just how our structure works since we all live on campus together. But thank you all so much for joining us. As mentioned in the chat, this recording will be available on our website later on for anyone that wants to access it. And once again, I would highly encourage each and every one of you, if you have any remaining questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Alicia Berry, here at admissions, or if you are already working with an admissions counselor, feel free to reach out to them with any questions, as we are here to be a resource And we're more than happy to connect you with more and more students along the way, as we understand that that's a really important part of this process. But once again, a shout out to these students for giving up, a good chunk of their Tuesday evening to help out. And also Derek, Dean of Academics, he's staying very, very busy, especially in that first month of school. So for him to set aside this time to speak with you all. And thank you all for joining us and being interested in Proctor. It's a really exciting time that you're all in, and we're here to support you along the way. But with that being said, I hope everyone has a great rest of their evening, and I'm going to sign us off.